Okay, so moving on, Russia's invasion of the Ukraine has created a supply shock for the food, fertiliser and agriculture industries, driving prices soaring. We saw it reflected in Elders update yesterday, but what about ETFs? Joining us now is Jessica Lung from Beta Shares. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No worries at all. So where are you seeing the flows at the moment? Is there this big theme of trying to buy up agriculture now that everyone's worried about food security?
Yeah, so we're definitely seeing a huge uptake in our food ETF. So that's our Global Agriculture, ticker FOOD. So that fund recently reached over 100 million back in March, and actually has continued to see flows throughout April as well.
Okay, so where else can they gain exposure to that thematic? Or is this the way to express a belief in the fact that we'll continue to have this food inflation, we'll continue to have high prices?
So I guess the current events have definitely shined a light on the environmental and social aspects within ESG, different to what you might think of just directly food prices and higher agriculture and fertilizer prices. So for example, social issues, people are starting to think about, again, poverty, hunger, political instability, and food security. And then of course you have the environmental side of greenhouse gases, where a third of total emissions are due to the production, distribution, and consumption of food itself. So that's where I guess our new ETF, the Beta Shares Future of Food ETF, ticker IEAT or IEAT, lets investors play into the future thematic.
So what is contained within that particular ETF, and tell us a little bit more about, I suppose, this sort of future of food notion, because clearly we eat food, we consume food, we generally know where it comes from, but how is this a little bit different to what you might get exposed to otherwise?
So as the name says, it's the future of food. So it's the core pillars, or the core pillars behind the thematic include plant and cell-based foods, your sustainable packaging, smart farming, and food supply chain. So I guess the main genesis behind the fund is that our population is growing, and we're due to reach 10 billion by 2050. So even before the political events of Russia and Ukraine, we're actually struggling to feed this amount of people as is, and to do so in a more sustainable way. So I guess the current events, if anything, has just made a bad situation worse.
And so does it contain a lot of tech as well, ag tech, clean tech? Because that comes to mind as one way that we'll be able to ensure food security in the future.
Yeah, tech in the form of development and research. So you have smart farming practices to reduce waste and stuff like that.
Okay, and is this global, obviously?
Yes.
Because you wouldn't think that there'd be enough in the Australian market to sustain such a thematic.
Yeah, so it's a global fund, and it'll give you exposures of up to 50 names, which are considered the forefront of the industry.
So, I mean, in terms of the way that investors have played this, you obviously saw a big spike around the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Was there sort of bubblings away before that of investor flows sort of picking up on this sort of food security issue even before then?
I think it was definitely people are thinking about it, even on your day-to-day coffee choices of, your alternative milks and stuff like that. But there wasn't exactly a way that investors could play into the thematic. And that's why now IEAT has really given an opportunity for investors to have exposure to this thematic.